For-profit prisons have been plagued by health and safety issues for years, with numerous prisoner and staff complaints and wrongful death lawsuits. Notwithstanding their poor track record, the companies have received billions of dollars in contracts from the federal government, motivated by this mistaken belief that private corporations could do the job cheaper and better than government. In August of 2016, then Inspector General Sally Yates of the Justice Department released a report that showed private prisons had far higher rates of violence and lockdowns and poorer access to medical care than public facilities. A few weeks later, Yates issued a memo that directed the Bureau of Prisons to phase out its use of private-run prisons altogether. GEO, a company which runs the George Hill, Delaware County Correctional Facility, donated $170,000 to a Trump Political Action Committee and $250,000 to Trump's inaugural bash, and then benefited from Attorney General Jeff Sessions rescinding Yates' memo. GEO then received in excess of $774 million. Welcome to PA Voter Information Network. This is Larry DeMarco, your host. Coalition for Prison Reform held a public forum regarding abuses at the Delaware County George Hill Prison. At the forum, Democratic Councilman Brian Zadek commented, "Private prisons have perverse interests. Our interest as a community is to not have them make money. Our interest is to incarcerate and hopefully rehabilitate people, and it's certainly not to keep the prisons full." He noted, keeping prisons full is GEO's explicit objective in its most recent annual report. In this episode, we will ask the question, does the criminal justice system act as a co-conspirator in assisting companies like GEO to make money and keep their prisons full with such inhumane conditions? David, the Delaware County Times covered a story where an assistant public defender filed a lawsuit against the public defender for losing his job because he wasn't pleading out enough of his clients. Apparently, he felt pressure from various public officials and his boss to keep moving his docket and plea a certain amount. When I say plea, of course, for our viewers, plead guilty a certain amount of his clients, which he, according to the article, didn't feel were guilty, and they didn't want to take that plea. You were a public defender in Philadelphia for 10 years. Were you aware of any type of pressure to move your own docket along for your clients who were charged with crimes?
Well, this example you gave, unfortunately, exists around the country in various different public defenders' offices. And this is because you have a state or city official that has to move these cases in order to be able to being thought of as successful. Unfortunately, it tends to be somewhat of an assembly line kind of situation where supposedly justice is supposed to be served, but we're just processing and moving cases along. Now, you mentioned that I was in the Philadelphia Public Defender's Office. That's true. And fortunately, that office did not act that way. In fact, if they found out that all you were doing were processing or just settling cases, they would go ahead and pull you aside and say, we're here to actually try cases and represent our clients well. Now, I happen to know that about this particular office. Now, they're not the only ones in the system, however. When you go to the courtroom, the public defender is usually the most hated person in the courtroom.
Why is that? Explain that.
That's because they look at you as you're the reason that's keeping them there. You're the reason that's extending their workday. If you played ball, if you got rid of all these cases, guess what? Everybody gets to go home early. Everybody gets to go home for the day and then plan for the next day.
So you're saying that they hate the public defender. Well, who is they?
Everybody in the courtroom that's doing a job. They know that they have to be there. I'm not going to point out specifics, but that includes everybody, including the judge, the prosecutor, the bailiff, everybody. They all have to remain in that room until that list is done. And the public defender's office can either process it quickly and just plea it out, or they can fight for their clients and say, no, I think, I'm sorry, there's going to be a trial.
David, I want to be clear about our discussion right now. You have never practiced in Delaware County. You have never practiced in the Delaware County Public Defender's Office, correct?
Not the PD's office, no, I have not.
So you don't know about any particular pressure of being a public defender in Delaware County, correct?
No, I cannot speak to that.
You're talking generally, and you're talking about your experience at the Public Defender's Office in Philadelphia, correct?
Right.
How do you know about any type of pressure nationally or generally?
The public defender's offices, I actually, around the country, we get an opportunity to meet with these people once in a while. You hear about these things in the news. We're more attuned to these kind of situations. Obviously, in other public defender's offices, you hear complaints about them. There's a general idea of public defender's office being less capable than, let's say, a private attorney, something that I don't agree with at all, and I've experienced the difference to know that that's not true. But there is a very real pressure that exists with public defenders as opposed to private attorneys. A private attorney can just saunter in whenever they like, make an agreement, smile at the judge, and they get a different kind of a treatment very often than the public defender that's representing 15 or 20 people on the list that could not afford a private attorney.
What is the obligation a lawyer has to his client? Explain that for our viewers.
A client has to be zealously represented by his counsel, whoever that may be. And that goes for any area of the law, whether it's civil, whether it's criminal, whether it's public defender, whether it's any area.
Where does that come from?
It comes from the oath that you take. When you take an oath to be a lawyer, you're charged with zealously representing your client. If you cannot do that, don't take on clients. That's what you have to do.
And who is the client of a public defender? He's paid by the state, right?
Right. His check is probably signed by somebody whose authority derives from the state. Yes, that's true.
So let's get this straight. The DA represents the Commonwealth of Pennsylvania.
Correct.
Who does the public defender represent?
Well, the public defender actually is a department created by the government, either state government or city government.
To represent,
or a combination.
To represent who?
To represent the accused.
Not the state.
No, not to represent the state's interest, to represent the individual's interest. That's true. The individual accused, that's who's supposed to be represented, even if it's to the detriment of the state.
But in that article, this guy was fired for not processing claims fast enough. Who was he not listening to when he got fired? His supervisor or his clients?
Well, if you believe the allegations to be true, he's alleging that he was fired because his supervisor felt that he wasn't processing claims fast enough. Processing the cases fast enough, either through pleas or some kind of a quick method to get rid of him. If you believe that to be true, and he says that this is the pressure that came upon me, well, that would have obviously come from, a representative of the state, which would be improper. Anybody will tell you that is improper.
And you mentioned, David, from speaking to other public defenders, this is not unique to Delaware County. This is something common to other public defenders' offices.
Well, yeah, each public defender office has its own character, its own ethos, if you will, and way of doing business. And you very often hear this complaint about public defender offices being overwhelmed by the number of cases that they have, because there are just so many defendants to take on and so few lawyers to represent them and so few judges or courtrooms to process these in, and everything gets backed up. And so yes, the solution that people would like to see is just rush these people through the courtroom process.
The Coalition for Prison Reform discussed individuals who were accused of crimes but couldn't make bail. They were presumed innocent and were held under inhumane conditions at the hands of GEO, a private contracting company prioritizing profit over human dignity. However, GEO doesn't fill its own prisons. It appears that our society set up a court system that required a substantial portion of guilty pleas in order for it even to function. In order to have complete criminal justice reform, there needs to be reform in the courts, reform in the cash bail system, which wrongly incarcerates innocent people, and reform the manner in which we currently house our members of society who are presumed innocent. Not just one element needs to be changed, all of these elements. Only then can we have a society that dignifies the rights protected in our Constitution. Please subscribe for notifications of new videos. Forward this link to the people on your contact list or social media friends. Click the like button and leave a comment. I would love to hear your feedback to this video. Signing off. Tune in next time. Bye for now.